In the last red hour of the day, Eli Mercer rode the fence line with the wind scraping dust across his coat, thinking only about the stubborn bull that had busted his railings again, when he saw a figure swaying in the heat shimmer ahead. At first he thought it was a stray mare or a drunk traveler who'd wandered too far from town, but the shape was too slight, too fragile, teetering as the ground kept sliding out from under her boots. He slowed his horse, narrowed his eyes, and felt the world go uncomfortably still. It was a child, barefoot, half-starved, skin cracked by sun and wind. She stumbled another few steps before dropping to her knees as quietly as a shadow that had given up the fight to stay attached to the earth. Eli swung down from his saddle, so fast the reins slapped against his palm. The girl flinched, arms rising as if to shield her head from a blow. He'd seen fear before on dying men on cornered animals, but this was different. This was terror carved into bone. "Easy there," he said, voice low, steady, hoping she understood tone even if she couldn't grasp the words. "I ain't gonna hurt you." She tried to speak, but only a rasp came out. Eli pulled his canteen free, uncapped it, and held it out. She stared at the water like she expected it to vanish in smoke. After a trembling second, she took it. The metal touched her lips. Her eyes squeezed shut. She drank. The sound of it, those desperate gulps, cut him deeper than any blade. Apache, he realized. She had the long black hair, though it hung in matted ropes, the strong cheekbones, the small bracelets of bone on her wrist. And trouble always rode behind an Apache child found alone on white man's land. "Where's your folks?" he asked softly. She pressed the back of her hand to her mouth, lowered her gaze, and said nothing, too scared or too weak to answer. He looked around the empty plain, dust, brittle sage, the long sweep of land rolling toward his ranch. No camp, no horses, no sign of life except vultures circling far off to the south. The girl tried to stand, but her legs buckled. Eli caught her before she hit the ground. She stiffened, but he held her steady until she sagged against him, light as a grain sack. He lifted her onto his horse, climbed up behind her, and turned toward his ranch. He knew what he was inviting by taking her home. He also knew he couldn't leave a lost child to die under an empty sky. The wind carried a distant sound. Something sharp, like a far-off call echoing through the canyons. A warning, or a promise. Eli nudged his horse into a faster trot. Back at the ranch, the dogs barked at the scent of a stranger, circling until Eli quieted them with a low whistle. He carried the girl inside, laying her on a cot near the window where cool night air drifted through the cracks. The adobe walls glowed orange in the lantern he lit, the flame unsteady, like it sensed risk in the room. She watched everything with wide, wary eyes. A cornered fawn would have looked less afraid. "Name?" he asked gently. Her lips parted. "Naley," she whispered at last. He nodded, a simple word. "Friend." It struck him harder than he expected. He brought her bread softened in broth, and she ate with small, careful bites, as though expecting him to snatch the food away. When she finished, she wiped her hands on her dress, a torn, dust-stained thing that hung off her too thin frame, and looked toward the window. "Men came," she said suddenly. Her voice trembled but held a thread of strength. "Not Apache. Paint faces. Kill my mother." Eli went still. Bandits, then. He'd heard rumors of white raiders dressing as Apache to stir fear and chaos up and down the frontier. Clayton Briggs and his pack of wolves. They'd hit a trading post 2 weeks ago, killed 3 men, and vanished into the rocks like ghosts. Naley curled her knees up, arms wrapped tight. "I run. I hide. They chase, then leave." "How long you been walking?" he asked. She shook her head. "Son, 2 times?" 2 days alone in the desert. Eli swallowed hard. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying grit against the walls. The sky darkened with a kind of quick, bruised evening that swept the plains when winter wasn't far behind. The horses in the corral grew restless, stamping and snorting. Eli stepped onto the porch, scanning the horizon. Fresh hoofprints by his fence line caught his eye. Recent, sharp-edged in the settling dust. More than one rider. Maybe 2, maybe more. And close. Someone had tracked her. He checked the barn doors, securing them. The windows. the latch on the back gate. His place wasn't a fortress, but man learned to prepare in a land where help was usually a day too late. Inside, Nellie sat upright, listening. She flinched at every distant sound, the soft groan of the windmill, the low yip of a coyote beyond the ridge. Trauma sat heavy on her shoulders, older than her 12 years. "You're safe here," Eli said. "Not safe," she murmured. "They come. My people come look for me." He hesitated. "You think they'll be angry finna you on my land?" She nodded once, a small, grave motion. "Apache do not lose child." Eli rubbed a hand over his jaw. He understood what she meant. Her people would see her absence as an insult, a danger, or a capture. Either way, they'd ride in numbers. And white rancher plus Apache girl equaled suspicion, no matter the truth behind it. Not for the first time, Eli wondered why the simplest acts, giving a child water, could ripple into storms big enough to tear open a man's life. Nellie crawled close to the window, peering into gathering darkness. Something out there frightened her. Her body stiffened. "What is it?" Eli asked. She lifted a shaking finger. "Look." He leaned beside her. On the far ridge, two figures stood motionless against the pale moonlight, tall, silent, spears in hand. Watching. Apache scouts. Eli's breath caught. They had found her. When he blinked, the ridge was empty, gone, or simply repositioned where he couldn't see. The night felt suddenly tighter, as though the land itself held its breath. Eli kept the lamps low. No need to throw a beacon across the plain. Nellie stayed near the hearth, arms wrapped around herself, eyes darting between door and window. He checked his rifles, quietly, methodically, not because he intended to use them, but because a man without readiness didn't live long out here. The hollowness in his gut wasn't fear but certainty, heavy as a desert sky before a storm. "You sleep," he told Nellie. "I'll keep watch." She didn't lie down. "They think you steal me," she whispered. "It ain't the truth." "Truth not matter," she said, and the way she said it stabbed deeper than the words themselves. Hours passed with only the groan of wood shifting in the cold. The wind died, and the silence became unnaturally complete. Eli stepped outside again, scanning the rolling land. The sky above was clean and clear. No stylized glow, no dramatic flare, just the honest sweep of night laid across the plains like a cold blanket. Then he heard it, a distant drumbeat, slow, measured, like a warning meant for the earth itself. Nellie moved to his side, clutching his sleeve. Her breathing quickened. "More come," she whispered. "How many?" She didn't answer. He didn't expect her to. The drumbeat faded, swallowed by the canyons. But the silence afterward fell heavier, as if the land waited for something terrible to arrive. Inside, Eli sat at the edge of the cot, elbows on his knees, staring into the low flicker of the lantern. His mistakes, regrets, and old ghosts gathered in the corners of the room. He wasn't a hero, never had been. He was just a man who had once failed his own blood and spent every year since trying not to repeat that failure. Maybe that's why he couldn't leave Nellie to die in the desert. Near dawn, Nellie jerked awake, eyes wide with fear. "They close," she said. "Very close." He didn't ask how she knew. Some instincts didn't need explaining. Together, they moved to the window. The horizon was just beginning to gray, the first thin light stretching across the sand. And then Eli saw them. Not many, not yet, but enough to confirm what the girl had warned. Riders. Apache riders. Silent silhouettes cresting the ridge, scanning his ranch with predatory stillness. More would follow. Many more. Eli tightened his grip on the windowsill. "Lord help me," he murmured. "Sun ain't even up yet." Nellie looked up at him, her face pale with dread. "They think you took me." He didn't answer. Didn't need to, because even from this distance, he could feel the weight of what was coming. By sunrise, every rider in that valley would know his name, and the war they believed he'd started would soon arrive at his door. The first pale light of morning crept over the plains when Eli Mercer stepped out onto his porch with Nellie at his side, her small hand gripping the edge of his coat. The air held a brittle chill, the kind that bit the skin and warned the day would be harsher than the night. Below the ridge, the land shimmered in a muted gray, as if the world braced for something it could not escape. Eli squinted toward the horizon and saw the riders. First a handful, then dozens, then a mass of horsemen cresting the far hill like a dark wave rolling toward shore. Nellie stood stiff as a fence post, her breath sharp and shallow. Eli lowered himself so he could look her in the eye, but she kept her gaze fixed on the riders. She was 12, but fear made her seem smaller, bones too light for the weight she carried. "You told me your people would come," he murmured. "I just hoped they'd see sense before they blamed me." She swallowed hard. "They must know why I am here. They must hear truth. That's what I'm counting on." Eli straightened as the first ranks approached, their horses stamping into the hard-packed dirt. Dust billowed around them, cloaking their numbers. At the front rode a tall warrior with broad shoulders and a scar cutting from his temple to his jaw. His hair, streaked with early gray, hung loose around a stern face. His eyes were cold flint, unreadable but burning with restrained fury. Eli recognized a leader without needing an introduction. The warrior lifted a hand, and the entire formation halted as one. The sun, just breaking the rim of the world, found the edge of a spearhead and sent a quick flash across the ranch yard, like a blade signaling death. Nellie pressed closer to Eli, and he laid a steady hand on her back. He could feel her trembling through his coat. "You the one called Mercer?" the warrior demanded. His English was clipped, each word weighed before release. Eli nodded. "That's me. You have one of ours." Eli waited a beat. "She was dying in the desert. I brought her out of the sun, fed her, gave her water. That's all there is to it." The warrior's eyes shifted to Nellie. His jaw tightened. "Why were you not with your mother?" Nellie's voice cracked as she said, "Mother is gone." A ripple went through the ranks. The warrior dismounted with a heavy thud, walked toward her, and knelt. Even then he towered over her. "How did she fall?" "White men," she whispered, "painted themselves like us. They killed her. I ran." Silence fell like a dropped stone. Behind Eli, his horses stirred uneasily, sensing tension sharp as barbed wire stretching between the two sides. Eli spoke low. "Your problem ain't with me. It's with those raiders." The warrior rose slowly. "I am Dason, chief of this band." He studied Eli with eyes that missed nothing. If what the child says is truth, then we have been misled. Dust drifted through the quiet that followed Dason's words. Eli felt the weight settle, not just on him, but across every warrior in the yard. The notion that raiders wanted Apache land was no small claim. Men went to war over less. Dason motioned for his nearest scouts. 3 riders came forward, each sharp-eyed, each carrying themselves with the precision of men who had spent more nights tracking shadows than sleeping beside a fire. "You found no other signs?" Dason asked. One shook his head. "Only her tracks. And strange boot prints. Heavy. Not ours." Eli stiffened. "Those same tracks were near my north fence last week." Dason turned. "Why did you not mention this sooner?" "Because I didn't know what they meant. Could have been any drifter." Nellie stepped closer, voice soft. "They followed us for many days. They wore boots like that stirred unease through the warriors." Eli sensed doubts shifting into a single, shared realization. Whatever hunted her might soon hunt them all. A younger warrior rode forward, lean and tense, maybe 20 at most. He glared at Eli. "If raiders shadow this land, why should we believe you aren't with them?" Eli snorted. "Son, if I were with them, I wouldn't be out here talking. I'd be waiting till dark and cutting your throats." A few warriors bristled. Dason lifted a hand, displeased but not offended. "Your tongue is sharp." "So's the truth," Eli replied. Dason looked at Nellie. "Tell me again, how many chased you?" "For at first," she whispered. "Then more. They wore masks, feathers, paint. They pretended to be us." The scouts exchanged glances. Impersonation meant strategy, and danger beyond simple raiding. One scout spoke. "If they disguise themselves as us, they want blame placed at our feet." Eli grimaced. "And a dead girl at my ranch would have set your whole band on me." "Maybe that was their plan. The tension changed again, this time into something cold and calculating. Dason stepped back, considering. If this is so, we cannot stay still. Raiders who mimic us endanger every village along the canyon. The young hothead from earlier dismounted and approached Naley slowly. I am Tawa, he said. Your cousin. We looked for you. Her breath hitched. Tawa, I thought you gone east. I came back. His voice wavered. To help. Naley reached for his hand, and Eli felt something settle, like the earth itself recognizing truth among turmoil. Dason exhaled deeply. We take her home. There she will be guarded. Naley's fingers clutched Eli's coat. I do not want to leave. They will hunt again. They remember faces. Eli crouched beside her. You'll be safer with your people. Her head shook fiercely. Not if they follow. Not if they want our land. The scouts straightened, alarm flickering beneath their stoic calm. Dason knelt, voice low. Child, speak plainly. She swallowed. Mother heard them. They said your valley has water, that you trade with settlers. They said they would take it. Eli cursed under his breath. That was motive enough for bloodshed. Dason rose, eyes burning. If raiders want our valley, they will strike soon. Eli looked him square. Then you got one hell of a fight coming. Dason nodded once. And you, Mercer, may already be in it. A wind swept across the yard, carrying dust in the silence that follows a truth no one wants to face. Eli stood in the center of it, feeling 300 eyes measuring him with new calculation. He wasn't their enemy now, but he sure wasn't their kin either. Dason adjusted the spear on his back. If raiders come, they will strike first of the edges. You live on the edge, Mercer. I've held off worse than raiders, Eli said, though he knew his ranch wasn't built for battle. It barely held together as it was. A scout rode forward. Chief, we should return and warn the village. Dason nodded but looked again at Naley, 12 years old, small, determined. Will you come with us willingly, he asked. She pressed against Eli. I wanted to come too. Eli sighed. Naley, your people can protect you better. But they cannot protect you, she whispered. Her words stunned him. Tawa stepped closer. Cousin, he is not of our band. Then we stay until the raiders stop, she insisted. Dason studied her, then Eli. She believes you matter to what comes. I didn't choose any of this. No man chooses a storm, Dason replied. Tawa said quietly, if raiders want our valley, they will target anyone near it, even him. Dason nodded. Mercer, if you remain here alone, you will die. I've come close before. A man who shelters a child deserves more than to be left for raiders. You making me an offer? Ride with us, until the trail is clear. You know settler tricks. Eli looked toward his ranch, his father's land, memory-bound and fragile. If raiders come while I'm gone, they will not find you here, Dason said. Without you, they lose one target. I thought I was bait. You are, but bait survives among sharper teeth. Eli nodded slowly. All right, I'll ride. Naley whispered. It will not go bad. Dason signaled the warriors. Saddles tightened, horses shifted. Tawa brought an extra mount. Ride close, he said. Raiders favor ridges. Eli mounted, Naley climbing behind him. She held tight. Trembling, Dason raised his voice. From this moment, your trail is our trail. Eli tipped his hat. Then let's move. With a thunder of hooves, they surged forward. Dust swallowed the ranch behind them. Ahead stretched the plains, wide and carrying danger not yet fully revealed. As they rode, Eli cast one last glance back. The ranch looked small from a distance, a speck against the plains. Yet he felt a pull, an urge to defend it alone. But the dust rising behind 300 warriors told him the truth. Whatever storm was coming, it was larger than any man's solitary stand. The canyons opened before them like the gaping mouth of some ancient beast, shadows stretching long across jagged rock faces. Eli Mercer rode with cautious eyes, gripping the reins so tightly his knuckles burned. Naley clung to his back, small and tense, her bare feet brushing the horse's flanks, hair wild and tangled. At 12, she had endured more than many men, yet her wide eyes betrayed the lingering terror of a child who had seen her mother killed. Dason, the chief, led the formation, his black hair streaked with gray, scars slicing from temple to jaw, flint-gray eyes scanning every ridge. At 45, he had the calm authority of a man who had survived countless raids and winters, yet there was a measured tension in his posture, a quiet wariness beneath the command. Behind him, Tawa, Nayli's 20-year-old cousin, rode with coiled readiness, lean muscles shifting as he guided his horse over rocky terrain, black braided hair bobbing with each step. Eli's horse scrambled over shale, hooves clattering against rock. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing like stone on his shoulders. Every step forward was measured. He wasn't here for glory, not for medals or praise. He was here because a child's life demanded it, and the raiders who had stolen it would learn, sooner or later, that mercy was not weakness. The canyon walls narrowed, forcing the column into single file. Echoes carried every hoofbeat, and whispered wind like they were amplified. A hawk circled high above, talons outstretched, scanning the dust below. Eli's mind ran through the possibilities. Ambush points, hidden ledges, quick exits. He wasn't just guiding a child and a handful of warriors through natural terrain. He was threading them through danger stitched into every ridge and shadow. Suddenly, Tawa raised a hand, halting the column. "Figures ahead," he whispered. Ahead, partially hidden in a narrow ravine, the glint of metal reflected the weak sunlight. Army rifles, crudely stacked barrels, and the dark shapes of men, 4, then 6, then a dozen, lined the cliffside. Clayton Briggs and his band had found them. Eli's stomach clenched. This was no scouting party. It was a trap. Dason signaled silence. The warriors shifted imperceptibly, leaning into the canyon walls, bows drawn, eyes flicking like coiled snakes. Eli's own rifle was at the ready, fingers brushing the hammer. Nayli's small hands gripped his coat. "Stay close," he whispered. She nodded, the words unspoken but understood. The bandits moved first, firing a warning shot that shattered rock and sent dust cascading. Eli dropped low, pulling Nayli behind the horse's neck. Arrows hissed past. One struck near Tawa's shoulder, tearing a scrap of cloth but missing flesh. Eli's mind snapped into rhythm. Movement, counter, cover, protect. There was no hesitation. Each breath counted. Each motion could mean life or death. He rolled the horse sideways just as a rifle cracked from the cliff above. Dust filled his mouth. Eli's own shot rang out, kicking up a spray of stone and dirt as the bullet found its mark in a bandit's shoulder. Dason loosed an arrow that arced high and landed squarely between two men trying to flank Eli. The canyon turned into a blur of hooves, dust, screams, and the smell of gunpowder. Nayli screamed as a rock dislodged from the upper cliffs, striking too close to the horse. Eli grabbed her, pressed her to him, and kept the mount steady. Her heart pounded against his back, tiny and fierce. "I've got you," he murmured. "I won't let them take you." She whispered back, "I know." The bandits' numbers seemed endless, but the warriors moved with practiced precision. Dason's men flanked. Tawa darted between them like a shadow, cutting off paths of escape. Eli realized the canyon itself was a weapon. The walls confined the raiders, giving them choke points and angles of attack. Each movement was choreographed instinctively. The canyon was no longer just stone and dust. It was a stage for survival. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Sweat streamed down Eli's face under his hat. He could taste grit in his mouth. His muscles burned from constant tension. Every gunshot, every arrow, every jolt of the horse reminded him that one slip would be final. Yet through the chaos, his resolve crystallized. This fight wasn't about pride. It was about a promise, made silently to a frightened child who had already lost too much. Finally, Eli caught sight of Briggs, a broad, cruel man with a jagged scar across his cheek, rifle raised, eyes cold with anticipation. The outlaw spotted Eli and leveled the rifle. Time slowed. Eli's pulse surged. Then a sharp whistle from Dason distracted Briggs, followed by a simultaneous volley of arrows from the flanking warriors. Briggs fired, but his aim was disrupted, and Eli charged, tackling him toward the canyon wall. They crashed into stone and dust. Briggs struggled, cursing, but Eli's grip was unrelenting. Nellie, despite her fear, reached out and yanked a strap from Briggs' rifle, sending it clattering to the rocks. Tawa plunged forward, striking Briggs in the side. The outlaw tumbled over the cliff's edge, scrambling for purchase, only to vanish from sight with a shout that echoed through the canyon. Dust and debris rained down. The remaining bandits scattered, disorganized, some surrendering, others fleeing into maze of cliffs. When silence finally fell, Eli sank to one knee, breathing hard, grime and sweat streaking his face. Nellie clung to him, shaking. "It's over," he whispered. But even he knew that over was temporary. Survival in the West was a fragile thing, one only moment by moment. Dason approached, eyes scanning the aftermath. He knelt beside Eli. "You fought well," he said, voice low. "Better than many of our warriors. You honor the child." Eli straightened slowly, brushing dust from his coat. "I just did what had to be done." Nellie looked up at him, eyes wide with wonder and relief. "Thank you," she breathed. Her voice carried the weight of months of fear, loss, and courage barely held together by hope. Dason stood, casting a long gaze over the canyon. "Your place in our story is not forgotten," he said. "Child safe. Raiders gone. The valley protected." Eli nodded, but his eyes lingered on the cliffs, aware that the frontier had no permanent peace, only survival, respect, and the fragile alliances between those willing to fight for what mattered. The return to the ranch was quiet, filled with a tense relief that no one spoke aloud. Horses trotted steadily along familiar plains, carrying tired but alive warriors. Dason, his broad shoulders relaxed just slightly, rode at the front, glancing back now and then to ensure Eli and Nellie remained secure. Tawa flanked him, ever watchful, muscles taut into the saddle, braided hair shifting with every movement. Eli's mind drifted to the lessons carved into him by that morning. Trust forged in fire, courage measured in acts small and large, and the unexpected power of mercy. He looked down at Nellie, her hand still gripping his coat. At 12, she had endured unimaginable fear, yet the flicker of resilience in her eyes was a blaze he could feel across his chest. As they crested the last ridge before the ranch, the morning light revealed the familiar contours of his homestead. Smoke rose from the chimneys. Horses grazed quietly. The adobe wall seemed both fragile and defiant against the vast landscape. Eli exhaled, feeling the tension loosen slightly. They had survived. The child was safe. And the raiders were no more. Dason raised a hand. "This land belongs to those who defend it," he said quietly, the wind carrying the words across the plains. He handed Eli a small carved talisman, a mark of respect and trust. Eli took it, feeling the weight of its meaning. Not just gratitude, but recognition that he had entered a world that demanded courage, respect, and honor. Nellie climbed down from the horse, hugging Eli tightly. "I will visit," she promised, voice soft but sure. Eli hugged her back, the warmth of life and hope filling the space left by fear. Tawa approached and nodded once at Eli, a silent acknowledgement of shared battles and survival. As the sun rose higher, casting realistic, pale light across the ranch, Eli stood in the yard, looking over the plains. He realized that the frontier wasn't merely land to be settled. It was a test of will, courage, and compassion. And sometimes, the smallest acts, offering water to a child, could change the course of lives and lands. Eli's eyes settled on the horizon. Raiders may return. Life may throw storms in all directions. But he had learned that strength often came from unexpected alliances, and that hope, no matter how fragile, was worth every risk. He tipped his hat, glanced at Nellie, Dason, and Tawa, and felt a quiet satisfaction. The canyon, the plains, and the ranch all seemed to hold their breath with him. A battle won, a child protected, a lesson engraved in blood and dust. The frontier remained wild, but for a moment peace, respect, and the unspoken bond between man, child, and warrior held sway. And Eli Mercer knew that no matter what came next, he had faced it with honor.